Okay, so this video was inspired by a topic that was discussed over on Konnan's Keeping It 100 podcast. And I want to give my own thoughts on it because their video was really, really good. Everybody made very solid points. But I want to give my 2 cents on this. And basically, it's the story about what's up with AEW and why isn't it catching on. And so the thing about their video is they play a quote from Dave Meltzer, and Dave Meltzer pretty much said that the reason as to why AEW is not catching on, it's not the booking or anything like that. It's the fact that people keep trashing AEW, talking about how Tony Khan is, a billionaire's kid, and sort of like, constantly making fun of AEW, and that led to the sort of people's opinions about the company changing, right? He thinks that it's influence from some of these older podcasts who criticize AEW. Now, I want to give my 2 cents on this, and I want to start by saying that I know that Dave Meltzer gets memed a lot and has become kind of a lol cow, but he's been around a long time and he's seen a lot of things, and I do have respect for him, but I think he's very misguided here with his thing because he basically said there's nothing AEW can do. It's not, they're putting on great shows every week. They're putting on great matches. It doesn't draw. Here's the thing. First of all, Konnan pointed out on the podcast that Meltzer's in his 60s. So his idea of what's cool and what isn't is probably not going to vibe with somebody in their 30s, 40s, and certainly not 20s or late teens. So people are different now. People are born with smartphones. Television is produced differently. The idea is to keep you on the same network as long as possible. And I think that the idea of AEW, quote unquote, not being cool and being seen as a company for nerds is 100% AEW's doing. And yes, it is the booking. The reason as to why Meltzer does not criticize the booking is because the booking of AEW is tailored for fans like him. AEW is booked for hardcore wrestling fans that love great matches, that love great athleticism, and have stacked cards with all of that on there multiple times. This is why Will Ospreay has more 5-star matches and up than any other pro wrestler in the world. This is why a lot of those New Japan main events get such high ratings, because Meltzer, the type of wrestling he likes, is the type of wrestling AEW gives. Focus on the in-ring, focus on the wrestling. Of course he's going to say shit like, oh, it's not the booking. No, it is the booking. We have been studying this now for the past 8 months. Jon Moxley and the angle he's doing right now with the Death Riders is not working. Now, apparently they saw a boost in viewership recently. So that's good. Like, I'm happy for them. I want them to succeed. But the storyline with Mox is not working the way they wanted it to. And people have been wanting AEW to pivot, which is WWE's new word, and kind of switch gears and try something else. And I don't think they're going to do that. Tony Khan himself has said publicly, I book for the sickos. Now, who are the sickos? The sickos are the wrestling fans that remember everything, watch wrestling all day, and focus more on the in-ring than the actual story that builds to the in-ring. That's what the sickos are. People who are almost obsessed with wrestling. Now, I love professional wrestling, and in theory, I would be considered a sicko in that I like great matches and I like big pay-per-views, and I like New Japan main events. I like the way Will Ospreay wrestles. For all intents and purposes, if you were to examine the kind of fan that I am a sicko. I can spend hours watching pro wrestling, especially different stuff from older territories that happened before I was born, or older WWF stuff, or even like indies that I missed. There's a lot of wrestling out there, a lot. So in theory, I would count as a sicko. But even I don't watch the television because I don't think that Dynamite is booked well. I don't think Tony Khan knows how to book a TV show. I think he knows how to put together matches for a pay-per-view with a loaded talent roster, but I don't think that his TV is good. And every time that I go back to try to watch Dynamite and give it a chance, which I've done like at least like 4 times since January, something happens or something comes out and I just lose interest. I just don't care. It's how it is. And right now, in fact, I'm considering, and I haven't made a decision on this yet, but I'm considering dropping SmackDown until it goes to 2 hours, because SmackDown at 3 hours is really, really long. It feels like those Vince McMahon 3-hour Raws. It feels like those. Not the current ones, 2.5 hours. It's the longer ones where they had to fill up the time, because that's what they're being paid to do. Fill up the time. So you've got like random mid-card stuff going on, and the show just doesn't really flow as well as a 2-hour show. But I digress. That's a different topic. Point is that the AEW television is not well booked, no matter what Meltzer might think. Like I said, Dave's style of wrestling that he likes and that he's always liked has been the All Japan pro wrestling style main events. Now New Japan does them, as well as the indies, and the current crop of wrestling stars were heavily inspired and influenced by those matches. The problem is that's not what sells in America. In America, professional wrestling is more like a male soap opera. And you've got to have characters that people care about being put in situations that they have to overcome with weekly serialized TV. They always say episodic, but it should not be episodic. It should be serialized. Every episode should cliffhanger or in some way flow into the next if possible. You might not be able to pull that off every week, but that's the way it should be. WWE did a phenomenal job with this for about 2 or so years with the Bloodline. Roman Reigns being there, the Sammy stuff was great with the Usos. There was a ton of stuff in 2022 and 2023 that was some of the best WWE television that we ever got, because we got invested into Sami Zayn's character. He's never in his whole career been as over as he was during that time. The Kevin Owens portion of that story and how they came together. The Usos and their complex relationship with Roman Reigns. That's what people care about. For AEW, people care, at least some people, about Toni Storm, Mariah May. Some people care about the Hurt Business and MJF. Some people care about this Kenny Omega Okada stuff and the thing with the Young Bucks working now with the Death Riders and all that stuff. Some care about that, but a lot of people don't. A lot of folks do not. And the way that AEW books their television is just not effective for an American audience. It doesn't keep you hooked throughout the show. They don't have little show-long angles like wrestling used to do. They don't do cliffhangers properly. There's not enough angles. You'll have like long matches where you already know who the winner is. Like they'll book, for example, Jon Moxley against Kyle O'Reilly, and you know that Mox is going to win, but they go 8 minutes. Just have Mox beat him in 4. Oh, well, you don't want to bury Kyle, then don't put him in there. Like, it's silly. And the thing that irritated me the most is the absolute just lack of self-awareness and the absolute just lack of ability to read the room by people like Tony Khan and Dave Meltzer. They constantly say that AEW is putting on great shows, but the numbers don't always reflect that. They're not doing what they did a couple years ago. They were 800K, 900K, a million. They're not. And they can do that because they did it for a while. Why have people stopped watching? Because they don't care. It wasn't all just CM Punk fans. But losing CM Punk obviously had an effect on them. You can't deny that one. And I think the whole situation made a lot of fans lose respect for Tony Khan. When he said his life was in danger and the fact that he cut Punk and then Punk on Ariel Helwani. So when Meltzer says that these podcasts are the reason people don't watch, first of all, a lot of wrestling fans don't listen to Jim Cornette. A lot of them don't listen to these podcasts, right? And also the thing is, a lot of these podcasts are giving constructive criticism sometimes. From Jim Cornette, he will give constructive criticism, but we know that in Cornette's case, he hates the Young Bucks. He doesn't like Kenny Omega. And he constantly clowns on AEW. So that's somebody who I wouldn't even factor in. But if his audience, if Jim Cornette's influencing his audience not to watch, they weren't going to watch anyways. What happened? I don't think they're part of the 200K or 300K that stopped watching. And what irritates me about Tony and Meltzer is they're constantly, whenever bad booking is brought up, and when I say bad booking, I mean mostly of the television, but they've done some overall bad booking too. It's never the booking. Why? Because, well, Dave likes the show, CageMatch.net likes the show, so it must be a good show. Forget that there's 200,000 people that you had that are gone. Forget that. Forget that. No. Cage Match likes the show. Cage Match is composed of sickos. And I'm using that term because he used that term. I would consider myself a sicko. The casual audience doesn't know anything about the history of Omega and Okada. But the hardcore fans do. And they can educate them sometimes. But it's up to AEW to make us care. It's up to AEW to tell us that story and give us a reason to care. That's who it's up to. It's not up to us Googling names and buying New Japan World and watching the Omega Okada matches. Most wrestling fans aren't going to do that, man. The hardcore ones have already seen those matches. We watched them at freaking 5 in the morning when the Tokyo Dome was going on. I'm just like TK when it comes to wrestling. I will stay up all night watching wrestling. I love wrestling. I genuinely do. Again, that's why I count myself as a sicko. But even this sicko can't stand their TV. The point I'm trying to make is you need to educate the people who don't know any better so that way they care and don't just say, I don't care about this. I'll stop watching. It's not important. Then they'll go find something else to do on Wednesdays. The idea that the booking and the presentation of AEW is not the problem is absolute ludicrousy. The booking has been bad for a while. The stars have not been over. And it has a domino effect. Along with the CM Punk drama and how people lost respect for Tony. His constant meltdowns. And the fact that WWE got hot. There's a lot of different things that factor into AEW and their decline, but all they can do is control what they can control. And what irritates me is instead of actually doing the mature adult business thing you need to do, this is why CM Punk said it's not really a business. It's not a real business. Here's why. People keep saying that AEW is just Tony Khan's little pet project and it's his little universe that he can afford, he's a billionaire, to play with his toys. That's been a constant thing, right? But AEW hasn't shown that that's wrong. They haven't, in an effective way, proven them wrong. That's literally what it is. So look, you can't control guys wanting to leave, which a lot of guys do now. You can't control what CM Punk says. You can't control what happens in WWE. All you can do is control your own company, which means controlling your talent, controlling the philosophy of the company, and booking the company effectively and creating characters that people care about. Casual wrestling fans do not care about good matches. I don't know how many times I have to scream this into the void. They don't care. Hulk Hogan was the biggest thing in the 80s. And even though he's had great matches, a lot of them are pretty much the same exact match. And it worked for years. People only care about matches if they care about who's in the match. It doesn't matter how much hype somebody has from the indie scene. It doesn't matter how many times someone headlined the Tokyo Dome. It doesn't matter if the TNT title's on the line. Those things don't matter. None of that matters. It's the characters. And it actually kind of pissed me off because all they do, instead of taking responsibility like a businessman should, well, you know, we're booking great shows. I don't understand why people aren't watching. It must be the evil podcasters on YouTube. That is so fucking ridiculous, man. Well, our shows have to be doing good. Look what Cage Match says. Look at all the stars I'm getting from Meltzer. Dude, the Cage Match and the Meltzer audience are part of the hardcore wrestling fan. Just like I am and Tony Khan is. And we view things like that. The difference is that I'm one of the hardcore fans that is able to step out of the bubble. The issue is a lot of people are in the bubble. I'm able to step, and I'm not the only one, but I'm able to step out of the bubble and view things objectively. And the reality is that wrestling fans want that male soap opera. The matches do not matter unless you care about who's in the match. You have to get people to care by creating compelling characters. I don't think Tony Khan knows how to do that. Tony Khan can book a nice, 10-match card with talent that's great. He can do that. That's fine. But actually writing characters, like creating relatable characters, that requires a different skill set. That requires somebody who knows how to write. And as far as I know, TK never took any writing classes or go to college for like journalism or, done a master class on, writing characters. He hasn't done that. He doesn't know how to do it. He has no idea how to do it. No idea. And until they figure that out, until they stop blaming shit that has nothing to do with it, blaming the podcasters, blaming, WWE, like enough. Take responsibility. You can't control what WWE does. You can't control what Jim Cornette says. So take control of the damn company and get it focused, because All In is right around the corner and that show needs to draw a big crowd, and I'm sure it will. But they got to draw the biggest possible crowd, and there's plenty of time between now and then to get the product hot and to get people to care. I just don't know if TK can do that. He needs to hire more professional writers who know how to write characters, whether they be people in the wrestling business or not. Just somebody who's familiar with writing characters and has their finger on the pulse of what young people want. Not Dave Meltzer. Dave Meltzer's always preferred the All Japan long match style of wrestling, the King's Road style, the strong style. He's always had a bias towards it. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what he likes. Some people like lucha. Some like the weird, hardcore stuff with the staples. I like the dramatic storytelling, the stuff that Shawn Michaels would do, and Undertaker. and Bret Hart, like the real dramatic storytelling of the matches. But again, none of that works if you don't care about the characters. When I was a kid, Bret Hart was my favorite wrestler. So I cared every time he had a title defense. I cared when he was going for the title because I wanted him to win because he was my champion. You know? They need to start taking responsibility, but Tony's very sensitive. He doesn't seem to want to change. And like I've said before, because his money was inherited, psychologically, the company not doing well is not going to put him in the poorhouse because they have all these other ventures. Tony Khan will never go hungry. Whereas if this were a startup business with somebody who wasn't wealthy and inheriting it from their dad, then he would have a whole different mentality. He can be stubborn. The problem is that people validate him. And I respect when Dave criticizes him. I don't know if TK listens, but I do respect that. But the idea that it's not the booking, yes, it is the booking. If it wasn't the booking, people would not complain. Where were all the complaints at in 2021, 2022 when Punk had that little feud with Eddie Kingston and the feud with MJF? Where's that at in AEW? Where's the bitching with the Young Bucks storyline with Kenny Omega and Hangman? Where's that at, bro? Were the podcasters bitching about that? Maybe Cornette was. I know everybody I know loved it. What about that fucking Cody versus Dustin thing they did year one? Or even like some of the Cody stuff like Cody versus Aleister Black. There's a lot of things that people, those podcasters as they say, there's a lot of things that they were not crapping on back then. They're crapping on it now. Because it got real bad starting in 2022. But when we got to 2024 and late 2023, that's when the cracks started to really show. I've been talking for over 20 minutes about this, man. My point is, like, AEW is not seen as cool. It's not. It's not cool. Like, the people who are cool don't think AEW's cool. They think it's fucking nerdy. You've got, and I'm gonna sound like Jim Cornette here, but it's true. Excalibur is a very annoying play-by-play guy. Not just the fact that he wears a mask doing play-by-play. First of all, you're an American. You're not a luchador. You don't have to wear the stupid mask, right? It just looks silly. And the fact that the show is booked, the show comes off like it's booked by a little kid. Like literally, and like it comes off very nerdy. It comes off very like the fan base, they have that geeky sort. And again, I'm in that category. I'm not shitting on them. I'm one of them. Right? I'm man enough to admit that. But it's like, it's not cool. Like, when the Bullet Club was red hot and the Bucks and Kenny were selling that merch, that was cool then. Now, it's like the Bucks have go away heat and Kenny's back and I'm glad about that, but he's not like at the top of the cards just yet. He's close, but he's not like the centerpiece of the company, even though some think that he should be. He's very good. Point is that it's not cool. It's very uncool. And the biggest shock of them all is the fact that they brought in Master P in 2025. Master P has not been relevant in decades. Since his son Romeo became a star, Master P has not been relevant. But you know what blows my mind, bro? Every single thing that Tony Khan said in 2019 that he was going to do, he went back on. Every single thing. I'm not going to sign everybody. You signed almost everybody. We're not going to make the same mistakes WCW made. No, you've made the same mistakes and then some. Obsessing over WWE a little too much and addressing them. Doing the work shoot stuff where you work the boys. That's WCW shit. And bringing in Master P. See, at least when they brought Master P in 1999, at least then he was selling records. Make him say, came out in 98. No Limit was actually a big label at that time. They were doing very well. It's 2025 and we got Master P on AEW. Like when Tony started making the same mistakes WCW made, I never thought we'd see Master P. My God, what's next, bro? What's next? Are we gonna have somebody drop a title and then freaking cut a quote unquote shoot promo? Oh, we already did that with MJF. It wasn't the same thing as Hogan, but similar energy. Just focus on the characters, but they can't do that. So I wanted to address that because AEW is not cool. They're not perceived as cool. They're perceived as the nerdy number two. And even though WWE has had a pretty rough couple weeks because WrestleMania was not great and people are still upset about it, right now they are being seen as being a little bit more cool. Guys like Penta are cool. Braun Breaker, cool. Jacob Fatu, cool. Whoever's writing for WWE besides Triple H certainly knows what's getting over. NXT, Shawn Michaels, that NXT is literally like the product for like Gen Z. It's people that are young, like around their age group, and the storylines are all very tailor-made for them, and they're different than the stuff on the main roster. NXT, I think, has its finger on the pulse more than any other brand. So, what do you want me to tell you? Like, WWE and people there are perceived as cool, not as cool as they were in previous years, like, in the Attitude Era or even Ruthless Aggression. But also, Ruthless Aggression was also partially the PG era, and a lot of folks did not consider them cool at that time. But yeah, those are my 2 cents on the topic. Let me know yours, and I'm out of here.